ice, so why is he even out there to begin with? I get both sides of the argument, but I think we're reaching that point of where the light is at the end of the tunnel with Staal. I feel like there are options where we could either buy him out to get his money off the cap. Maybe we can package together a pick or two, or a prospect or a picker or something just to add as a sweetener to get most of his contract off the books. And who knows? Maybe he goes on long-term injured reserve. That saves his cap hit. Maybe he retires. The injuries have definitely built their it's definitely been a toll on him.
Speaking of long-term injured reserve, Dan, I think I speak for many Rangers fans when I say we never got to see what could have been of Michael Sauer. I mean, this defenseman was phenomenal. The guy's only 32 still. Guy's career ends because he got a concussion on a hit from Dion Phaneuf. But I think, he would have been one of the all-time Rangers during that run, but we just never got to see what would be from him.
I mean, Dion Phaneuf is typically always involved in negative stories, and rightfully so. I forgot, Nick, that was the dude who hit Sauer. Michael Sauer was a great young prospect. Justin and I often joke around with, if we haven't seen a player for a while, we will say he's gone Sauer. He's gone Michael Sauer. Yeah, that's the game. I guess it's part of it. You get these young prospects, you get a lot of guys making their way up, and unfortunately some things like that happen, and you just don't know where. And I think that's the hardest thing, even when you are rebuilding, is you can look at a lot of these veteran guys like Staal and others, and you can say, hey, let's move them because we got Keandre Miller coming up, we got other guys coming up. But there's a breaking point to where if you don't have enough, and that's what the Rangers experienced, I think, even at the beginning of this season, that you reach a point where you don't have enough strong veteran leadership and just, honestly, NHL experience in the room, whether they're vocal leaders or not, NHL game experience. When you don't have enough of it in the room, your young guys are not going to develop. You're going to actually stall their development if you try to put them out there without enough structure and without enough NHL professionals to keep them going. So that's a tough balance, I think, right now for the Rangers. I honestly think it's you can't just throw all your prospects out there and think that in a year they're going to figure this out. It doesn't happen that way in the league.
So Justin,
again, a tough balance.
So Justin, how excited are you for Miller? And would you, if they come back right now and there's the rest of the season, would you just have this guy pull a Chris Kreider and come up and play right in the playoffs? I think you really don't have much to lose, but to Dan's point, he might not flourish because he's being thrown into a tough situation. And B, let's talk about the playoffs a little here, where we're talking about all these crazy things. Maybe there's going to be a 24-team playoff, which I think is absolutely crazy. Or maybe you have a 7, 10, 8, 9 play-in game, which I think is fine because that, especially in the East, everybody's separated by 1 point with the Rangers currently looking from the outside in. I think that would work. But what would you do here with Miller? And then what do you think about these proposed NHL playoff structures?
So I would be very hesitant at this point in time to call up a prospect who I believe he has not played a single game in the AHL yet, right? I think he played for the Badgers last year of Wisconsin. I don't think I would want to see more experience.
But look at the Rangers' best player in the playoffs years ago. It was Chris Kreider, who played 0 games in the AHL as well.
Right. I think it is different when we talk about a defenseman versus a forward. But I'd also say that Kreider was exceptional at BC. I don't know if Keandre honestly is as much of a standout prospect as Chris was in his senior year at BC. So I just don't know. But in terms of the playoff format, I would be in favor of us finishing the regular season and then having some type of abbreviated postseason. I think it's really, really tough to just have. Where do you draw the line? I mean, a 24-game postseason is excluding only 7 or how many teams are there in the NHL? 31, right?
4 in each conference.
I would say let's finish out the remainder of the schedule, and I'd rather I'd rather cut the first round to 5 games to the best of 5, and maybe the second round to the best of 5 if we need to, than have a playoff format that allows like 80% of the league to take part. Because that I just think is not really efficient and kind of odd. So.
Certainly. I mean, the only other thing that would be fair, I think, is if you just say, all right, you get the top 4 seeds from each conference, and that's it. 8-person playoff, because they earned it. They're ahead in the points, but that will be seen. But let's talk about some historic Ranger stuff here, and I think this is where the whole thing went bad, where the Rangers they get rid of Hagelin. That was a horrendous trade. Presta's gone. Boyle's gone. Delzato's gone. Duclair is gone. Strawman's gone. Of course, later on they get rid of McDonough. But the biggest mishap of all these, Joe, and Dan hit it before, is getting rid of the guy who should be the captain right now, and that is Derek Stepan. So many times in the playoffs, this guy bail the Rangers out, keep calm and step on, and they just get rid of him. And so far, it's not looking like a good trade.
Yeah, Step going was a real tough one. And I think, again, I'm not faulting anyone specifically, or even I'm not mad at Mac either, but I think we made the wrong call believing that McDonough had the wiring to be the captain of the Rangers. I think the dude gave 120%. He was such an easy guy to cheer for, McDonough, such a lovable New York Ranger. But ultimately, whatever it is, demeanor, others, Max seems better off being, an assistant captain than anything else. And I think the dude, to your point, that should have had the C, should have been Stepan. And Step, I think, learned a lot from Marty St. Louis and Brad Richards and his playoff play. It's odd when a guy like Step, maybe he's similar to Richards in this way, that he's never going to overwhelm you or impress you what he can physically do. I'm not taking away from the guy. I mean, he's obviously a legit NHL player. But there's just a consistency to Derek Stepan, making the right play over and over again. You're going to trust him in all 3 zones. You're going to have him on the ice when you need a goal. You're going to have him on the ice when you need to defend and keep a lead. And that was a tough one to see him go. We certainly don't know what his reps were asking for from a contract perspective, and whether the Rangers, his no move clause, I guess, was going in the next season.
Yeah.
Who knows? I mean, who knows what it was going to look like to try to keep him long term, and if the Rangers felt like his stock was going down. You can make the argument point wise that Step was paid to be a number 1 center, but never really got to number 1 center numbers. Kind of in what his contract was. But yeah, that's a dude I miss a lot. I absolutely love Stepan. I think he was probably a dude that we didn't realize how much his leadership was essential to this team. I remember one moment, I talked earlier about how Hank sometimes seems like he could be kind of rough on his teammates. I remember one game where guys let up a bad play coming into the zone, and Hank made a save on like a 2-on-1 or something. And Hank, you could see, is screaming at his teammates, after he made the save. And you can see Step skate over to him and basically tell him to calm down. And emphatically, using a lot more direct language than I'm using now, he told Hank, hey, bud, lay off these guys. And I don't know if there was another guy in the Rangers who could have gotten away with that than Step. Yeah.
Joe, anything to add on, basically the return on what they got for Stepan with the draft pick?
To be clear, that draft pick was Tony DeAngelo. Or no, I'm sorry, the draft pick was Elias Anderson, but then they got Tony DeAngelo in that trade.
Yeah,
right.
Which is important to note. It reminds me of the Mets deal when they traded R.A. Dickey for good old Travis d'Arnaud, who is that was the prime guy we wanted in that deal.
d'Arnaud is fantastic last
year.
Led the Rays to the playoffs, so can't knock d'Arnaud. But all right, so Justin, back in December, you came to me and you said Panarin is the best skilled player to ever wear the blue shirt. Do you still stick by that statement? Because I think that's a slap in the face to a guy like Jaromír Jágr, who revitalized the organization.
Jaromír Jágr is an all-time great. is absolutely an all-time great, and he had an all-time great season with the Rangers in 2005. I mean, I think it's 2005, right?
Yeah.
We had Jágr for like one year. He produced extraordinary numbers. It's not fair to compare Panarin to Jágr, as Jágr is one of the greatest players of all time. Played in the NHL for. I think he put up elite numbers for probably 15 years. I don't remember the framing the comment like that, Nick. I remember saying that if we had a player like Panarin during those early 2010 on those Tortorella teams
or AV teams
or on AV teams, Rangers would have won a cup.
Oh, Messier Gaborik?
That is the type. I mean, Panarin's on a different level than Messier and Gaborik. I mean, they're not even. It's totally.
I gotta ask you guys, why does Rick Nash not get the love he deserves? I mean, I like him, so I'm guessing Dan's gonna counterpoint and say he wasn't good or something like he's been throughout this whole thing. But very underrated Ranger, two-way forward, and I think he contributed a lot to the success. But unfortunately, they didn't get the job done in some of those playoff series, and he kind of shouldered the blame on that because, rightfully so, he was the highly touted acquisition.
Nick, I'm happy to report that you were wrong. I also love Rick Nash.
Thank goodness.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. Rick Nash was awesome, amazing two-way hockey player. But the reality is Rick Nash was not – he was like right on that bubble of being able to move into maybe – I know it's like an overused term, that elite scorer piece. The difference is when you look at a guy like Panarin, Panarin's creativity, he's just magnetic on the ice. He does things that you just don't see other people do. And Rick Nash was a power forward. It's similar to Kreider, actually, more like is probably a better comparison than a Panarin type guy in the way they play. They're power wingers. I mean, Nash was an enormous human being on skates who was so powerful and gifted, just a real different player than Panarin is. I mean, Panarin is tiny. Relatively speaking, and just finds ways to create space out of nothing with his skill. But going back to your question, I think Rick Nash was an amazing Ranger. Never really got the job done in crunch time in the playoffs. He had some rough playoff numbers, which always hurts kind of people's opinion of him. But you can't argue with the effort and the reliability at all.
Yeah, and just to jump in here, Nick, I wish Rick Nash was still on this team. I wish we could afford a team with Rick Nash and Artemi Panarin. But when you talk about what we were missing in some of those cup teams, it was that elite goal scorer, that difference maker.
I just don't understand, Justin. I still don't understand why they thought it was necessary to trade Gaborik and not leave him with Nash. But what are your thoughts on that?
Was it Gaborik for Nash? I think they played on the same because they played on the same team briefly, I believe.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, for half a season, and they shipped Gaborik out.
Yeah, I mean, Gabby was a one-dimensional player. Great goal scorer when he was given the puck in the right position. But Gabby in a lot of
who did we get for Gabby?
Was Brassard part of the Gabby?
Maybe it was Brassard.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, listen, Gabby, again, a good goal scorer, like awesome goal scorer. But look at the way he played after he left the Rangers. I mean, that's honestly an argument against Stepan too. I mean, Step has he has deteriorated, again, going to Arizona as part of it. But Gabby's like more is sniper the right term. Give Gaborik the puck in the right place. He has an amazing shot. And he scores a good amount of goals. But he's not a creator himself, and he leaves an enormous amount to be desired on the defensive side of the ice. And I think the Rangers must have made the calculation that they thought they had enough offensive firepower without Gabby, and with Nash there and with Brassard and others, that they would be able to get the goals they needed. And let's be honest, I mean, they were a couple posts away from having a really long series, at least against the Kings in the finals. They weren't far. I mean, but having a guy like Panarin who demands so much attention every time he hits the ice and can make something out of nothing at all times, to Justin's point, it's, to me at least, you can make the argument that he would have been a big difference maker in the 2014 to 2017 teams.
Certainly, and we'll come to the end here. Appreciate you guys taking this time. But once you get started on these Rangers talks, they just go on and on, which is great. But Justin asked me what we're going to talk about. So I said, we're going to talk about Radek Dvorak, I just wanted to mention him because
Right.
March 29th, 2001, Uniondale, New York, the Islanders' home stadium. I was at the game.